Yo, what's up? This is your boy Shelvon, and this is Gaming and Culture TV. Sunday, we had a little bit of a discussion about a leaked video showing talking about why women in Western games look kind of manly. There was a video attached to it, and I didn't think we had enough time to actually go over it, so I thought I'd go over it today. All right, so this is gonna be a little reaction to Smash JT. I think that's what his name is. Video where he got a hold of the leaked video. Okay, so let's check it out. I don't know if I got the name right, but it is Smash JT. So here we go.
The gaming industry has been grappling with an ongoing issue that many players have noticed, but until now, only few have actually understood. Why do so many female characters in modern gaming have this masculine facial structure?
We know you can't really say, because if you say it, then you'll probably get canceled. But we kind of know why they're doing it. And this is what I got into Sunday, was about how there's a huge backlash. People aren't buying these games, so it's like they're trying to make excuses for why this happened and just ignore what they were attempting to do. But let's continue.
This jawline that looks like a dude, and everywhere you look, even in massive major AAA games, it seems to appear. What's the deal
This looks terrible
with that? Well, I got an anonymous message from somebody in the industry looking to expose the reality behind the fabled man jaw and why it keeps happening. What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Smash JT. The other day, I got a message from somebody looking to expose the inner workings of the man jaw, this man jaw that continues to appear. And
you know what's funny is there is a thing on X where someone put a beard on all of these manly looking women, and they actually look like very attractive men. It was crazy.
While many people initially, including myself, were looking at the developers and saying, oh, these developers are woke and they're trying to inject some sort of androgynous looking person into these games and to see themselves, that's the real reason for it. Potentially, yes. But if you dig deeper, it's actually Epic Games and Unreal Engine and the default characters that they give these developers.
The reason why I call BS on this is because there are plenty of Japanese developers who uses this engine, and their female characters look like women. They don't look like this. So that's why I say this is a bunch of BS.
Aren't very, we'll just say, appealing to the feminine form. Hit that subscribe, give me a like, and check out SmashJT.com for the full article breaking down the man jaw exposed and why women in games are looking like dudes and how it's actually coming from Epic Games. And to be clear, this video is focusing on MetaHuman and the Unreal Engine from Epic Games. I know there are a tremendous amount of AAA titles out there that don't use Unreal Engine or use their own proprietary game engine.
Yeah, that's why I'm calling BS on this. If it was just the people who use it, yes, but it's not. It is lots of companies, Western companies, that have their own engines
when they put it together. So take this all with a grain of salt as far as the overall jaw issue is, but at the same time, if it's happening with MetaHuman and Unreal Engine, there's a high chance and high likelihood that this could also be happening at other studios that have their own engines they're using as well.
It's just...
Yeah, I don't believe that.
The ugliest thing you've ever seen, I think. So let's just undo that. I'll stick with her, but this really shows you just how god-awful some of these, I don't know what you want to call it. It's like the ideology-infested tool. I don't have any of these issues when I create a male character. I can create male characters all day and they look great, but it takes forever to make someone look like this. And this is what they want it to look like instead. Like, what the hell is this? Is this...
That sounds like it is baked into the actual engine. Like, how do you release something where this is baked into the actual engine and your customer base or fans don't like it, and you have to go out of your way to make it look feminine? So yeah, that's what that sounds like.
Disgusting.
In a scathing expose, a video has been shared with me privately, and I have been given the okay to share this information publicly about a developer being very frustrated with how a tool generates female models by default. Models that, rather than appearing naturally feminine, instead start off looking like dudes. This developer, who asked me to remain...
So I'm curious, who is the person who came up with this engine? Is this like all the other studios where when you look into who actually is the person in charge of making some of these characters and they tend to think a certain way and they look a certain way? Maybe that's what it is.
Anonymous has also provided a video with proof of their findings and explained in full detail about Unreal's MetaHuman tool and how it is undeniably cutting edge when it comes to fidelity, with every pore, blemish, and skin reflection being rendered in stunning detail.
As long as your character looks like a man.
But, and this is a very big but, as opposed to the models on the women that are anything but that, this comes at the cost of the base models being fundamentally unattractive and unappealing based off of what is given to these artists to begin with.
I thought this was worth showing. This is the
Crazy.
MetaHuman tool that Unreal Engine provides for creating realistic characters. And here's a woman I created recently.
Not realistic. Most women don't look like that. Like, I'm trying to say this without coming across as too, that particular portion of the public who looks like that is like 0.0000% type stuff. So
Recently,
yeah.
and I'm quite happy with her, but it's like there's a lot of detail, and I think the shape is really nice, looks very appealing and feminine.
Yeah, she's like,
but you have to try very hard to get her to look like this. I had to do what's called the mesh to MetaHuman workflow, which is to import a custom mesh. You actually can't really create someone who looks like this from scratch using the characters they give you. They're actually a lot of them are actually quite ugly, I find.
Yeah, so like I said, this seems like this is on purpose. Like an idea to push the message type of thing to make it so difficult that you will be forced to make your stuff look like what this person who did this wanted. Kind of reminds me of when Google put out Gemini and people found out that you couldn't make white people. Like all you can make was people of color, no matter what you typed in. And then you find out that the person who did this did it on purpose because of some weird thought process is in his head. Like, bro, if you shove stuff in people's face, they're going to reject it no matter what it is. I don't care what, you can love chocolate, but if someone made you eat chocolate every day, all day, at some point you would absolutely loathe chocolate.
And so I had to use an alternate workflow to get in a different looking mesh to start with, and then I can sculpt it to the way I want it.
The starting point for these female characters is unnaturally androgynous, and it takes a tremendous amount of effort on the wireframing of the face to contort it to look more like a woman. That right there is the problem with everything. It all requires extensive tweaking and significant efforts from the artists themselves just to achieve a traditionally feminine.
So therefore, most companies don't have enough time to do that with, especially if you have multiple characters. Most companies don't have enough time to have their artists dedicate so much effort towards making this thing like look feminine. So it's like, dude, just whatever. As long as this looks somewhat appealing.
And look, I can think of three different reasons why this is happening. One, they're just straight up lazy developers, or two, they're just untalented and don't know how to do it and work it to make it look more feminine, so they just stick with the default option. Or three, the artist themselves is straight up androgynous themselves and they want to see themselves in the game that they're making. But typically what's transpiring here for this manjaw is one of those three things is happening, which is why it continues to perpetuate itself in all of gaming.
So my question is then that says something about Western developers. Because again, they are Japanese companies that uses this tool in order to make their games, and their women don't look like that. So therefore, is that saying something about Western developers? Is that they're more lazy, or what? What does that actually say? Because if it takes effort to make this person look like this, yeah, that says a lot about like the people that they're hiring at these companies, and it tells you why these games suck so much.
And so I have to use an alternate workflow to get in a different looking mesh to start with, and then I can sculpt it to the way I want it. There's a funny little slider that they provide, which is basically to ignore the mesh that you use and to revert to using theirs. And it just shows you the total anti, woman bias that's in tools like this, and that explains a lot. Like why is it that women look so ugly? And so like right now it's set to 1, which is using my mesh, and if I set it to 0 and using theirs, this is what they want to do.
So that basically tells me that this was on purpose.
And as you see in the video, one of the most striking features of this is the jawline and the facial structure of MetaHuman's female models. The prominence of the jawline, high foreheads, and heavy-set features read far more masculine when you're watching it. These features just aren't minor quirks. They require a considerable amount of work from the game artist to reshape it into something that would finally actually resemble what we would consider a woman.
Wow. Just imagine that you'd have to do this for every nationality whose facial structure is slightly different. Some more so than others. So you'd have to do that for every last type of woman to get a bunch of pleasing women to look at. So you can see how if you are a lazy developer, you're just like, whatever. It is too much work.
This is, according to my source, a very likely reason as to why we're seeing more and more female characters in AAA games come packed in with the now more infamous man jaw look, because the starting templates already lean heavily masculine to begin with, and regardless of the reason why the developer doesn't change it, the end result is it still happens. The problems don't stop at the face. MetaHuman's approach to the female body is equally strange, and honestly even more extreme for the worse. As my source pointed out, the default models lack any kind of actual...
This looks like a pictorial, like with no boobs. When you look at a side view of these, the women have no hips. In terms of what women look like, it's not correct. The women have bigger hips than men. It's just that's how women are made. So that's why if they can tell, like just by a skeleton, if the person is male or female. So yeah, so they're just ignoring all of that. This doesn't even look like this person. This is just like a regular chest muscle.
Curvature, flat chests, non-existent hips, and unnaturally compressed proportions. Now, when you look at a game like Dragon Age the Veilguard and the Character Creator, you weren't even able to raise out the chest and make it look more like a woman. It was very limited with the options that they presented you in the Creator character. And you
again, on purpose.
Look over at Epic Games' Unreal Engine and see what they provide the developers with, and it makes more sense. Everything comes together and you're like, okay, now I get it. Now I see where the problem is starting. If this is just simply a technical oversight or somehow some part of a much larger ideological push for inclusivity,
that's pretty obvious. Because you don't bake this into the engine. And so you got like woke people over the people making the engine. You got woke people over, and this seems to be strictly in the West. So you got a Western company that made the engine who seems to have baked this in. Then you also have woke developers who just, whatever, this is exactly what they want, so it makes their life easier.
We already know what Epic Games is going to talk about and how they respond to that. They'd say, oh, it's something along the lines of, we're trying to be more inclusive. This is how real people look in real life. That's why we made the models look generic.
Yeah, no, they don't.
And androgynous, because sure, when you go to Walmart, that's probably what you'll see there. So
no.
We make games that look like the people in Walmart. Why wouldn't we? Look, when I play a game, I don't want to see the people in Walmart.
But that's not this is an unusual person. This is not what people normally look like. So again, that's why I said this is BS. This is a lot of BS. They got caught on it for whatever reason, even though it's causing the failure of their industry. They refuse to change. It's actually pretty amazing to watch.
In my game, I want to see more attractive characters, unless the game itself is trying to put itself in a Walmart. And if I'm going to be playing Walmart Simulator, I'm going to start questioning my life's choices. There's a good reason why artists in animation, comics, and gaming stylize characters to emphasize certain features, whether it's sharper jawlines for heroic male leads or softer, more delicate facial features for feminine characters. We play games for escapism, not whatever the hell this program is defaulting to. And
it is aesthetics. We figured out the aesthetics of how we like women to look. If you can go find an old statue, I don't know exactly which particular group this is, but it's like thousands of years old, and it is a statue of what this particular person wanted a woman to look like an idealized woman, and it was small waist, big hips, large chest, and this was thousands of years ago. So we figured out what we like a long time ago. This last decade, all these crazy people have been trying to change that. It's not working, and they just keep going on regardless to whether or not, because they're not interested in selling you a product that you want. They want to sell you an idea that they think that you should have.
And this developer themselves is a woman who is fed up with the woman looking like men in games. It's not just dudes that are frustrated with this. It's literally anybody that doesn't look like androgynous or want to push an ideology on people. Anyone who's normal looking at the situation for what it is realistic to say, yeah, that jawline looks like a dude. If realism was truly the goal with all of this, why do all the male characters still retain their broad shoulders, strong chins, and well-defined muscles? Why does inclusivity always seem to disproportionately affect female character design?
Well, that is a whole different discussion there, bruh. It's like, that's when you got to get into changing society and all of these things. There is nothing that a woman can do that's going to make herself look masculine. Because she has smaller shoulders, she has the big hips, and all that. So she's always going to look like a really tiny guy. It's never going to happen. There are plenty of men who, for whatever reason, either resemble their mother a lot or whatever, can kind of pull this off. Something's off when you look at it, but they can still kind of pull it off. So and you got this anti-women thing, and it's just a lot of weird stuff, and that's like a whole different discussion.
Do we even need a tinfoil hat on at this point when we're looking at this stuff to realize that the agenda that's being pushed is pretty obvious? The issue here, at least from my perspective, isn't just about aesthetics. It affects how games are perceived, how players connect with characters, and how even the industry's creative direction has taken a turn for the worse. If tools like this MetaHuman always default to making women look androgynous or masculine, then all these studios that rely on them will intentionally or unintentionally, depending on the talent working there, push this slop of aesthetics directly onto the players. And we are seeing the end result in it with almost every single game we see come out right now, especially from the West.
It is almost specifically in the West. The East doesn't have these issues, because if you look at a comparison between women in Eastern games, like Japan and China and all that, they look like women. They have small hips, large breasts. They look very pleasing, and those games are selling very well. It is only when Square Enix had, like, for Forsaken, right? Although she looked, in terms of her face, she was attractive, but they still threw a lot of stuff in there, so you can kind of tell the Western part of the Western influence of that game. So yeah, I don't know what's going on in the West. It's actually pretty crazy. Thankfully, it's being roundly rejected on all fronts.
No wonder that we're seeing more games with unappealing female protagonists that fail to resonate with audiences. When character artists have to fight upstream against the grain, against the very tools that they're using to make a woman look like a woman, it's no surprise to anyone that we keep getting female characters who look like they were designed by a committee rather than artists with an eye for appeal. It all makes perfect sense now. At its core, it isn't just a minor technical issue, it's a philosophical one. Gaming has always been a blend about art and technology pushed together, and at the core of society at large since gaming's inception. But when the tools being provided to the artists are actively working against the artists themselves, it raises some serious concerns about the future of gaming. If MetaHuman and Unreal Engine continue down this path, we're bound to see a future where all female characters have to conform to this flat.
No, what's going to happen is companies that actually want to make money are going to start creating their own engine, regardless of how much it costs. And then they're going to put out pleasing games because it'll get to the point where the only games that are making money are the games that appeal to the customers. And anybody with any kind of business sense will be like, all right, we cannot do this anymore. Regardless of what, like, if anybody protests, then you can go because we need to make the money to pay you. If we can't make the money to pay you, like, how does it help, like, Ubisoft doing all the woke stuff if it eventually causes the end of Ubisoft? It's like it's going to cause the end of BioWare. It's going to cause the end of all of these developers. CD Projekt Red. I noticed that they actually changed what Siri looked like, and she stopped looking like so much like a man, but more like a tomboy-ish in the later pictures. So yeah, some of them are starting to figure this out. It's like, bro, this ain't working. We need to make money in order to pay people to make so we can continue to make games. So that's exactly what's going to happen. Like, at the end of the day, this is capitalism. You need to make money.
Androgynous and realistic look. Hell, some would even argue that we're already living in that very future right now. Game studios have lost their ability to creatively visualize what a female character looks like and be distinctive with appealing characters simply because their tools aren't allowing it, or their artists are too lazy or untalented to be able to do any better. Maybe
no, those companies will go away. It's as simple as that. That's how capitalism works. You stop selling product, you go away. Period. That's just, and all the DEI money and all that stuff is going away. You know, BlackRock who was pushing this harder than anybody else, is shying away from this too. So that's what's going to happen.
It's a time issue. Maybe it's a mental issue. Maybe it's someone that's trying to push an ideology on someone. Whatever the reason is,
it is the last one.
The fact of the matter is, it keeps happening. And this program is at the center of all of it.
It's just the ugliest thing you've ever seen, I think. So let's just undo that. I'll stick with her. But this really shows you just how god-awful some...
Man, look at the base head model right there. What is that? Like, seriously, you would figure that if you build this, they would have, and this is if you were actually making a decent engine, that this would not be this blob thing. You would have one for male, one for female. So that one you can exaggerate what it looks like, because how you're starting is starting from a masculine face and a feminine face. So then you can go crazy in using your imagination.
Some of these
Because is going to basically
I
kill
don't know
this.
what you want to call it. It's like the
Somebody's going to come out with another
ideology infested tool.
Somebody's going to come out with another.
I don't have any of these issues when I create a male
using.
character. I can create male characters all day and they look great, but it takes forever to make someone look like this. And this is what they want it to look like instead.
The developer who reached out to me provided me with some pretty compelling evidence as to what is transpiring here. And as you've seen overlaid on this, the video that they sent me is truth enough to get them to that point at the end of the day. But then that brings up the whole DEI question, and maybe these developers just aren't talented enough to be doing the job they
it is on purpose. So
were hired for in the first place. If you guys appreciate what I'm doing, hit that join button. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, you stay smashing.
This is going to kind of work itself out, to be honest. It's going to take a while. Hopefully it won't completely destroy gaming as we know it. But the one thing that I have seen is that the people who are pushing this stuff have no concerns over the health of the industry that they're in. You see this with comics and books. It's like science fiction is mostly like they have women who are into science fiction, but it's mostly sold to men. Kind of nerdy men, but it's mostly sold to men. And there's a plethora of science fiction authors who have no desire to write anything that a man would find appealing. So yeah, and it's gonna fail, and then they're gonna blame misogyny and all that other nonsense. So, all right, I will put a link to this video in my description, and if you got anything you want to say, just say it down in the comments, so I'll check you out. Because I'm a small channel, I'm able to actually answer folks. So just give me what your opinion is. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm right. So like I said, like, share, and subscribe, and all that fun stuff. Later.